Okay, it's Thursday night deck building. After a 1 week break, we are back and we are looking at a Ferengi deck today. Again, this is one of the decks that invests a lot into the seed infrastructure in order to have a deck that can churn out a lot of personnel. And the key card in this deck is this beauty here, Brunt's Shuttle. A small shuttle that has only 7 range, weapons that are nothing to write home about, shields of 6, but what's really interesting is the game text here. May report with crew to docking site of opponents or uncontrolled Empok Nor. And we've said this in the past, report with crew actions do not have a limit. As long as we have a crew that can staff the ship, in this case that means only a Ferengi affiliation personnel, there is no upper limit. If we can get 12 cards in hand, we can report the ship and all those 12 personnel as one action. That's just our regular card play. And the bottleneck here will be drawing enough cards to make sure it's worthwhile playing that. At the moment, decks that play 3 personnel per turn are more or less the minimum that you want. Getting 3 personnel into play either by 2 free plays and regular card play, or various free play engines, or 1 free play, 1 regular play, 1 download every turn. That's about the minimum that you should have in order to be competitive at the moment. So for this one here, we really want to draw a lot of cards. And the deck I've built here is one that tries to draw 7 cards each turn once everything is set up. So ideally you play the shuttle with up to 7 personnel aboard. You won't always have 7 personnel, sometimes it'll only be 4 or 5, but you should be slightly above the curve when it comes to getting personnel into play. The problem is some of these guys have to be Ferengi, and not all Ferengi are great as far as attributes and skills are concerned. But the beauty about Brunt's Shuttle is that we are not limited by Quadrant, since we're not reporting to a facility, not reporting to a site or outpost. So Quadrant doesn't matter, and that means we can bring in people like Kess from the Delta Quadrant. We can bring in people from different timelines if we have the correct doorway in, doorway out, like Jonathan Archer. We can have Gamma Quadrant personnel like Tosk. We can have Mirror Quadrant personnel like the various Mr. Quark, Mr. Brunt, and so on, Mirror Ferengi. So these are all options that we have, and we really want to play or to draw a lot of these guys and then play them each turn. To do that, we will rely on various copies of Space Time Portal in our deck. One of the options that we find on this card is at any time, also during our play phase, you may discard this doorway from table 2, and then let's have a look at the function. Return one of your ships in play and all cards on it to owner's hand. This is a trick that has already been used in the Decipher days to just play the ship with a lot of guys, beam the guys over to an outpost, and then return the empty ship to hand. You could also use this to play cards on the ship and then bounce those cards back to hand and play them somewhere else. I did a couple of things like that in the first version of this deck, but now I've streamlined it a bit. It's still very convoluted, and I'll just walk you through the setup here. So let's have a look at the seed cards. We are playing with a Q's tent, as expected. We will have the temporal micro wormhole out. It allows us to report alternate universe personnel and equipment. No ships, no events or anything like that. But for that, we have temporal conduit. Your alternate universe cards may seed and play 1 per turn. So we can seed as many as we want, but during our regular turns, we are limited to only 1 alternate universe card that is something other than the personal or equipment. Okay, so far for that. Let's have a look at the missions we find. We have search for weapons in the demilitarized zone, intercept dignitary, supply terrorists, which is also in the demilitarized zone. We can put it adjacent here. Mine dilithium, that's in the mirror quadrant. Seek remnants, and also attend mysterious rendezvous. So as you can see, we find the Ferengi icon on 4 of these missions here in the Alpha Quadrant, and Intercept Dignitary has the non-aligned icon, so we have lots of opportunities to attempt these. Mine Dilithium in the Mirror Quadrant is a mission that we are not going to attempt, but our opponent doesn't know that. They will usually have to put at least something there. If they are convinced that we don't run any other wormholes or something like that allows us to travel over, they can usually just seed a female's love interest and garbage cow there, which, because we have no other location to pull it to, would stop any mission attempt here. But we are not going to attempt that mission anyway. We're not going to travel there. If their opponent wastes a dilemma or two there, that's great, but we don't have to count on it. Okay, let's look at the rest of the seed cards. We are playing with a Empok Nor. It seeds uncontrolled during mission phase at a universal mission. Doesn't have to be a space mission, so we seed it here at search for weapons. After the latest change to the OTF rules, if we have a single copy of a universal mission, it is protected from mission stealing, so we don't have to worry about this mission being stolen, and we have a place to seed Empok Nor. So this change is really something that allows you to play Empok Nor in a few decks, where before it was maybe too risky. Since this is the place where we want to report Brunt's shuttle, we then of course need a place to a base of operations nearby. That's why we also have a second demilitarized zone region that has the Ferengi icon, so we can see the Ferengi trading post there. And this one allows us to download a universal Decora Marauder, so we can start with a ship in play, which is always useful. Then we will have new arrivals, allows us to play a universal personnel for free, but more importantly, it allows us to draw a card at the end of our turn. We have Defend Homeworld, which seeds as a hidden agenda. We have Assign Support Personnel, though I'm not sure exactly why it is in the deck still at this point. Oh yes, now I remember. We have the Unrelenting Lust for Profit, a place on a trading post, and it allows us to download right now First Rule of Acquisition from outside the game. So let's do that. It plays on a Ferengi facility. And First Rule of Acquisition then allows us to once per game download to hand a Gold Pressed Latinum and or a Ferengi VIP. And you could just simply see that. The benefit you get from the Unrelenting Lust for Profit is that you can do this download even in your play phase. Usually you would have to wait until your orders phase and then download these things to hand. With this virtual card here, you can already do it in the play phase, which might matter in some situations. Right, and then we have a lot of other stuff that we are going to seed in the Mirror Quadrant. We have the time location, the Halkan Council. Any player may download one Mirror Quadrant Constitution class ship here. We will do that. We go for the ISS Enterprise, and we will immediately download its trigger, the special download here. Let's do this in the seed phase. Download a Terran Empire personnel. We grab James Tiberius Kirk, and immediately use his 2 downloads of Tantalus Field and Classic Communicator. We don't really need them, but our opponent might wonder what's up with all these cards here. So we do that. We will have a Terran outpost that seats in the mirror quadrant at Mine the Lithium. We then have assigned mission specialists, which I guess you all know. And our mission specialists will be Anson Davis and Yeoman Vaughn. They report to this outpost in the mirror quadrant. And then we have Habit of Disappearing, which is a risky draw engine. Let's have a look at it. It's seats or plays on table. End of each turn, you must place out of play the top 3 cards of your draw deck, which is a heavy price to pay, but just one if you have 3 alternate universe Terran Empire personnel in play. As you can see, we have Kirk and the 2 mission specialists, so we have those requirements already. That means we only lose the one top card of our deck at the end of every turn. But we also get to draw a card, so in terms of efficiency, this is quite good. For 1 seat slot, we get to draw 1 extra card. And don't worry whether what card you discard from the top of your deck. It really doesn't matter. If that card were on the bottom of your deck and you had no way of downloading it, you wouldn't see it in the game anyway. So don't ever be angry when you discard a good card. All the cards in our deck are good, so it doesn't really matter which one we lose. Chances are we wouldn't have seen it in the game anyway. And then we have Study Divergent History. Seats or plays on guest quarters. We don't have a regular Nor. The Intendant's quarters. We don't have that either. A mirror ship. We do have one. We can see this on the ISS Enterprise. And if you've seen past decks in the series, this is also a very good draw engine. Twice each turn, you may stop 2 personnel present from opposite quadrants to draw a card. So opposite quadrants means 1 Alpha Quadrant personnel, 1 Mirror Quadrant personnel. Stop them, you get to draw a card, and then you can do this once more every turn. So the problem is we have 4 personnel that we need to stop here every turn, but that gives us 2 card draws. So the idea is to have a couple of guys in the mirror quadrant that don't do anything apart from just sitting there and generating card draws and fueling this draw engine. And that's how we get to draw a lot of cards. But if you paid attention, that's not yet the 7 cards we can draw that I've talked about earlier. We have our regular end of turn card draw. We have a second optional one from new arrivals. We have a third mandatory one by Habit of Disappearing. We can draw 2 by stopping 2 guys for Study Divergent History. So of course we need another card, and we'll see that in a moment. Just for completeness sake, we need a docking site in order to actually report Brunt's shuttle. So we need to run Empok Nor with this free site. It doesn't count against our seed cards. All right, then let's shuffle our deck, draw 7, and see what we find. So this is a typical hand. You find 6 personnel and a space-time portal. Whenever we find a space-time portal, we will play it to the table immediately, because that's one we always want out. And then we see we have Mr. Rome, who is Mirror Quadrant. We can't play him. We don't have a reporting facility for Mirror Quadrant personnel, or at least he's not compatible with the Federation guys there. So at the moment, we can't report him. We could report the Universal Alpha Quadrant personnel, like Alice, Follis, Tar. We can also report Lore or Sooner. So what we're looking at here is just reporting a Universal personnel for free to the trading post. Let's take Tar. We usually want to have an officer or leadership personnel out early because we want to battle using a card we'll see in a moment. So we do that. And with the first rule of acquisition, also once per game, we download to hand 1 gold pressed platinum and a Ferengi VIP. So let's go into the queue's tent. There we'll find a gold pressed platinum. And if we look into our deck, We'll find a Ferengi VIP somewhere. Yes, that's Grand Nagus Gint. So these two cards are placed in our hand. And then we can immediately play Grand Nagus Gint as our regular card play. And that's already it for our play phase. This guy may now download any rules card. He has to special download any rule of acquisition. So we'll do that. We will grab a 34th rule of acquisition. It plays on your arms dealer or acquisition personal. So Gint himself has acquisition. We play it on him. And this is the card that will give us the 2 remaining draws. Plays on your arms dealer or acquisition personal once every turn if a non-rogue Borg battle was just initiated or opponent's ship was just damaged. Download 2 gold pressed Latinum here or draw 2 cards. We will always draw those 2 cards. We don't have any other Latinum in the deck. So whenever a battle starts, now what do we do if we don't have an opponent here? If we're playing against a Delta Quadrant deck that we cannot reach, that's why we have Empok Nor. It's uncontrolled, so we can shoot at it. So this is what we are going to do. We'll shoot at Empok Nor for 2 card draws. And even if opponent decides to commandeer it, then we have a target that is under our opponent's control. So we always have something to shoot at. Okay, there are more things to do in the orders phase. With Temporal Conduit, we can once per game download one of several cards, for example, Temporal Investigations. That's the one we have in the deck. Let's just play it here. Plays on table once every turn. If opponent reports an alternate universe personal or ship to Alpha Quadrant spaceline, you may draw a card. So this is just an extra opportunity to draw a card at some point. So if our opponent is playing, for example, TOS era personal with the Final Frontier, they are almost guaranteed to play an alternate universe personal to the Alpha Quadrant spaceline every turn. So this is a potential 8th draw. So you'll see that our hand will fill up quite a bit. Okay, there are more things we want to do during our first orders phase. We will flip Defend Homeworld and discard it to once per game download a security personal. And we want to download Gala to the Ferengi trading post here. Now Gala beams down to the planet's surface and he will trigger his special download of Hidden Fighter. Hidden Fighter downloads 1 ship with no staffing requirements to your away team on a planet. He is by himself, but he's an away team on the planet, so he can download Brunt's Shuttle. It's just there on the planet. And then let's read on with Hidden Fighter. You may also download established landing protocols. So whenever you play Hidden Fighter, you usually always grab the established landing protocols as well, which allows you then to download those shuttles and first of all, of course, to take off with them. But we don't actually want to take off. We're just happy with the shuttle being on the planet surface for the moment. Right, is there anything else we need to download on our first turn? I don't think so. Those are all things we want to grab later. Okay, now we have the pieces we want in play. Let's look at our hand. We have 6 cards at the moment. What we can do now is we can beam Gala up to the ship. We have a seeded Decora Marauder. We have Gint with a gold star, Gala with a silver star, and we were lucky to find another staffing icon with Officer. That means we now have a leader, so we can immediately undock the Decora Marauder, fly to Empok Nor, shoot at it. It doesn't do anything. Our 8 weapons cannot get through those shields of 16. Doesn't matter. All we want to do is initiate a fight for the sake of 34th rule of acquisition. Battle is initiated. We may draw 2 cards. Our ship is stopped then. That's fine. For Study Divergent History, we cannot do anything yet because we have only got 1 person on the board. But we want to make sure we can do this on our next turn. So now we are going to use Temporal Conduit. it reads twice each turn you may place a card from hand beneath draw deck to relocate your away team or staff chip from a time location to the corresponding spaceline location. So we can just take one card from our hand. Usually I go with any card that doesn't really matter. I'd keep the Gold Press Platinum, but for example, Alice series we don't need right now, so let's send this one to the bottom of the deck. That's the price we pay to let the ISS Enterprise travel in time to our spaceline, and then those two mission specialists can join Kirk and all the other stuff. They are all Mirror Quadrant personnel, so we cannot yet draw cards for Study Divergent History this turn, but we will address that on our next turn. Okay, then shuffle the deck again. We have 7 cards in hand now. Let's do our end of turn stuff. First of all, we need to remove the top card of our draw deck from the game. So let's draw one. It's a space-time portal. There are about 9 or 10 copies of that doorway in the deck, so losing one here doesn't matter. It's removed, but we get to draw one, or we need to draw one. Then we get to draw an extra card from new arrivals. And then we still have our regular end of turn card draw. So we end our turn with 10 cards in hand. We pass it over to our opponent. If they report an alternate universe personnel to the Alpha Quadrant spaceline, we could maybe draw an 11th card, but even if that doesn't happen, we're quite okay with that. So at the beginning of our second turn, before we play any cards, we will use the at any time option here on Space-Time Portal. At any time, discard this doorway from table to return one of your ships in play and all cards on it to owner's hand. So let's discard it, and let's return Brunt's Shuttle from in play to our hand. And then we get to take our regular card play. And that's when we use Brunt's Shuttle, may report with crew to a docking site of opponents or uncontrolled Empok Nor. There's an uncontrolled Empok Nor. We report Brunt's Shuttle. For that we need a Ferengi personnel aboard it. And everybody else. Dr. Rhaegar, Mr. Brunt, Togaran, Mr. Quark, 7 of 9 because she's got great skills, Mr. Rom, Lore, Suna, and we can even report equipment. So we just dropped a hand of a ship and how many was that? And 9 personnel and 1 equipment. So we sacrifice a lot of seat slots, but we can play a lot of quality guys. As you can see, they're either Ferengi with good skills, non-aligned personnel with great attributes or skills, like Lore and 7 of 9. There are also a couple of mission specialists in there. Follis, who only has navigation, but he's good for search for weapons, which is navigation on a planet mission, quite rare. We have double navigation on Intercept Dignitary. We've got double navigation on Attend Mysterious Rendezvous. We've got a single navigation on Seek Remnants. So by having a couple of mission specialists in there, we can usually make sure that doing 3 missions is enough. You won't get to do a 2-mission win in this deck, but just by churning out a lot of personnel, you should have enough resources to even cope with losing a ship full of personnel at some point and still have enough of a cushion to get to 100 points. Right, we have dropped a ship. Usually what we do is then we beam all those guys over to the other ship, to the Decra Marauder, or to the outpost. So usually I do it like this, fly Brunt's Shuttle over, and then beam all these guys to the outpost, and make sure Brunt's Shuttle is empty. The Decra Marauder can shoot at Empok Nor again, drawing us 2 cards. And now let's have a look what else we've got in play. We still have assigned support personnel somewhere. There it is. Once per game, you may discard objective to download a support personnel. A support personnel is a personnel that has only 2 printed skills, and they must be regular skills. So no special downloads, no stuff like soon as once per game may download reflection therapy. No, they can only be regular skills. So let's see if we can find one. And we are downloading Sergei Roshenko. If you look at this dual personnel, it has actually 2 personnel on it. One is Helena with exobiology in a special download, but the Sergei part is a support personnel. They treat it as different personnel who happen to be on the same card. So if we download Sergei with the assigned support personnel, then his wife simply comes along for the ride. And this may download to a, if we read the card again, to a matching facility. So it must be a Federation facility. But it doesn't say anything about quadrant restrictions. We can download it there. Assigned support personnel gives us a target, so we can report these alpha guys to the mirror quadrant. And of course we want them in the mirror quadrant because they want to beam over to where James Tiberius Kirk is. So now we have an alpha quadrant personnel, actually 2, but as soon as we stop one of them, the other will be stopped automatically. So we cannot yet use it for the stopping 2 of your alpha mirror quadrant couples. But we can now choose, let's take Helena, who falls madly in love with the fascist dictator here. Stop these 2 guys for a card draw. And the other 2 mirror guys are still waiting for somebody they can use to draw another card. Okay, so that's 3 cards in hand at the moment, and we have a lot of guys in play. We can already start attempting. Usually I would land Brunt's shuttle on the planet, just to have it safe from things like God and so on. But if we want, we could immediately start a mission attempt with these 9 guys here. They bring a lot of skills. They're just random guys we found in our hand. We've got security, engineer, officer, another security, engineer and science, another science, engineer and security. There's even a medical, and there's more science and engineer. So we already have a lot of skills that can get us through a large number of dilemmas, and we also have a lot of attributes as well. Since we are at a trading post, we can also discard the gold pressed latinum to download a non-latinum equipment there. So there are a couple of cards in the queue's tent. If we think that integrity might be an issue, we could discard the gold pressed latinum to grab Kukalaka to boost our integrity. If we think cunning might be a problem, there's a Ferengi pad in there. If our opponent has seeded missions in between ours, it might be a good idea to go for the plasmadine relay to boost the range of our ships there. So whatever you see, just have a look at the first couple of dilemmas and then decide what to grab with the discard action of gold pressed latinum. So we probably see the first dilemma. Maybe we can beat it already. Maybe we can beat the entire dilemma set there with 9 personnel. Chances are we make some progress here. At the end of our second turn then, we remove the top card of the game with Habit of Disappearing. So let's draw it. That's unfortunate. He's one of the guys that can download a useful card, lower decks. I've built a version where you can get him out certainly on the first or second turn to make sure that you can actually use lower decks. In this case, it's just unfortunate, but we don't have to worry about that too much. We are still compensated with a card draw, another one for new arrivals, and our regular card draw as well. As you can see there, we end our turn with 6 cards in hand. We have already found another space-time portal. If at some point you end up without a space-time portal, you can once per game download a space-time portal with Temporal Micro Wormhole. Once per game, you may download space-time portal or nullify its report with crew. So that's our kind of emergency failsafe here. If for some reason we have a dry spell without drawing into a space-time portal, you can grab one that way. But the math works out so that about every 7th card you draw will be a space-time portal. So by drawing 7 cards, you most likely find one every turn. And even if you don't find one on one turn, you can still use the turn to do other useful stuff. Okay, so let's start our our third turn. In the play phase, we will play for free this space-time portal, and then use the at any time action to return Brunt's Shuttle to hand. Discard the space-time portal for that. And we replay Brunt's Shuttle with good guys and other mission specialists, Muck, Rata, Krem, and Penk. And then, as you can see, some of these guys have useful abilities. Claudius is a mission specialist with diplomacy who can help us here at Supply Terrorists. Muck can download a Ferengi 22nd Century Personal. For example, there's Ulis in the tent, or he could also download Krem if we hadn't drawn into him. So that's a mid-mission attempt cheat that you can do, or we can do it immediately if we want. There is also Penk, who has the special download of any other card that has Tsunkatse in title or lore. So he can download the Tsunkatse ship. Even though it's a Delta Quadrant ship, it downloads to his location. So that gives us more flexibility to move around. We have enough non-aligned guys to make sure we can staff it at all times. So we can move all these guys over. It's our third turn. We already have an extra ship in play and 15 guys. Just go through your decks and see whether you can do something like this in a regular solver. We have 15 guys on our third turn in play just to attempt missions with. And we even have a ship that we can spare just to attack. We could even beam over Gala. We don't actually need the ship to be staffed to attack it. We just need the leader aboard. So technically we could also send Gint and Gala on a mission attempt. We don't want to risk Gint because he has the 34th rule on him. So we don't usually want to send them into harm's way. The same goes for Brunt's Shuttle. And we also have these 4 personnel who just hang around to generate card draws. So we can still do something. Usually we would do this during our opponent's turn. Sergei and Helena also happen to have a special download. They can download their son, Nikolai Roshenko, to them. So they grab them. He's also an Alpha Quadrant personnel, so he, for example, can make out with Yeoman Vaughn. So stop Mirror and Alpha here. Mirror and Alpha here. For 2 draws. The Decra Marauder attacks Empok Nor again for 2 draws. We send our crew on the merry way to beat a mission. And then at the end of the turn, we will remove the top card. It's again a space-time portal. And then draw 3 cards. And we draw into another space-time portal. So that's how our turns would look then. Drop the Brunt's Shuttle as your regular card play with basically everything else you have in your hand. Apart from other ships. Those are the only cards you cannot report for free. And then during your turn, do those actions. Stop the personnel in the Mirror Quadrant with Study Divergent History to draw 2. Attack Empok Nor to draw 2. And then at the end of your turn, draw 3 more. And ideally, you can then play a ship full of good guys every turn. There are a couple of other ships. So let's say we hadn't drawn into a space-time portal, but into something else. then we would have the choice of either doing that, the temporal micro wormhole download of a space-time portal during our orders phase if we feel we are not going to draw into one. And even if we took the chance and said we will find one in our 3 end of turn card draws, and it turns out we didn't, then we could still play a regular turn, meaning we could play a universal personal for free with new arrivals, and we could play one personal as a regular card play or use the regular card play for another ship, for example the Kraton here. That would be a very sad turn, almost like early Decipher days, where you more or less just play 1 or 2 cards and then that's that. But even if we have a bad turn like that, it just means that we will have more people to drop on our next turn. Draw 2, remove 1, and draw 3. And this is now a hand where we have 12 cards in hand without a ship. That happens every now and then, but considering our first 2 turns went so great, that's not really much of a loss here. And sooner or later we are going to draw into space-time portals again. So as you can see, we've got 4 in a row here. The ratios are so that it works out that you should have a space-time portal in most of your turns. You could even seed additional copies if you think that you can play with fewer than 15 dilemmas here. So, a deck that can take many people by surprise. Ferengi don't have the best skill spread, but there are a lot of good guys among them. This version of Quark that can download the Ferengi pad is a very nice one. He has Anthro Diplo computer skill, which beats, for example, Vicha by himself. There are useful personnel like Mr. Nog with Greed and Treachery that can get through Jewel of the Game. Random non-aligned personnel like Becky Sullivan. Honor is always good to have. Geo, Bio, Astro, Medical. Useful against so many dilemmas. Dr. Aridor with Medical to fill in some classifications. Zora with double Medical, double Treachery, Exo, and the failsafe that you can substitute other personnel for her. For example, this android to keep her around. Powerhouses like Belana Taurus, double engineer, double computer skill, the rare cybernetics, the rare transporter skill. We could probably replace even more Ferengi with more non-aligned, but I wanted to keep it at least a little bit thematic. But the non-aligned support is really great. Excalibin Callus is one of my new favorite cards here. Once each turn may gain a skill from a personal present until end of turn, so just double up on a skill that you are short. Levin, biomedical, he also has the trait of being a nurse in his game text, which is great against the popular medical crisis dilemma. Tosk can be excluded from random selections, which is useful. He has double navigation that we need for our space missions, for all of them. So if he can dodge some of the random selections, that's always useful. Kess is also noteworthy because she can special download the gift. There it is. That's one of the cheat out of a bad dilemma cards. You can download it, special download it in the middle of the mission attempt. If you run into something that, for example, blows up your ship with 20 personnel aboard, use the gift to just move to a different location. You have to sacrifice Kess for that, but at least she keeps all the other guys safe. You've seen Suna before. He can download Reflection Therapy. If you have Treachery greater than Honor present, so you will just take the personnel you want to change and Suna beam them down. Suna has Treachery. And then change one of their skills. That's also something that you can do with mission specialists. For example, you can have Follis go through therapy and change his navigation into something else. For example, into leadership. or acquisition or security. So you can grab mission specialist points by doing that. All right, Rome is here. Astrophysics, honor, navigation, physics, double engineer. Just an all-around great card. Non-aligned archer, who has a great skill set, including archaeology, is in there. Kol has diplomacy, which can be useful. Gallatin with anthropology and science and honor. There's another ship. Goza, who used to be universal, but he was correctly changed to being a unique personnel because he has got such great skills. And then there are some females to have a nice male-female balance. If you run into a deck based around Let Me Help, she can download Kukalaka, for example. She has youth, which can be important against some dilemmas. And then there are some other universals that simply bring different skill combinations to the table. Yegi has cybernetics, if for some reason you need it. There are also cards like Picard in there with the high integrity, which is a bit uncommon in the Ferengi affiliation. And that's about it. You can use really any kind of useful non-aligned personnel. And there are a lot more that provide useful downloads. You can toy around with the selection of cards in the queue's tent, or also just put them in the regular draw deck. It doesn't matter if you draw into an event here or there that you can then download with personal. You will still have a very good ratio of putting personal into play, even if you don't have a hand consisting of exclusively personal. There is some way to toy around. This is just the basic version. The elephant in the room is, of course, that there is something to do against this engine of doing Brunt's shuttle reports, and that's it's only a game. It limits each non-Borg report with crew action to 4 total personnel or equipment. So that, of course, can slow us down a little bit, but really not too much. We can still report 4 personnel, and that will be our regular card play, and then we would still have a free report of a universal personnel with new arrivals. So even if somebody has it's only a game out, that's still 4 personnel we can report with the ship, and another personnel we can play for free. So still putting 5 personnel into play every turn is nothing to be sad about. Of course, we only have room for 15 dilemmas. I've also built a version of this, which I will also link to, that runs a different mission setup, which more or less gets rid of the entire mirror quadrant component and runs the Ferengi homeworld, deliver message, and plays Study Divergent History there. The setup is going to be a little bit different. We need to make sure we actually get people to the homeworld, even though it might be far away from Empok Nor, but there are some ways to do that. And that's a version that runs with 18 slots for dilemmas. So we have cut the seed cards by 3, but we're also drawing 1 less card. We're only drawing 6 cards because we are not running the habit of disappearing. We could just add it, but then we would lose 3 cards from the top of our deck. You can, of course, simply make the deck bigger and don't care about that. But even with 6 draws, it runs quite nicely, and that gives you the 18 dilemmas that many people prefer, so they can actually put a combo of 3 under every mission. The advantage that the other version with the homeworld has is that it has 6 Alpha Quadrant missions that you can all attempt and solve. But some of them will be 30-point missions. So you might end up doing 30, 30, 35, and then you would really need to make sure that you have your mission specialists out in time. But you can have a look at that deck list as well. All right, that's about it for the moment. Not sure whether you're following the Star Trek CCG group on social media, but I've toyed around with some deck boxes. If anybody is interested in stuff like this, customized Kaiserverse deck boxes, just let me know. Comment on this video on YouTube if you like it, and I'll be happy to send one your way. That's it for today. Until next time, hope you enjoyed this. Bye bye.